So what if I told you there's a lot more to the crossbreeding mechanic in Palworld? A lot more in terms of getting secret upgrades, amazing bonuses, and upgrading your partner's skill to get new benefits, including ways to make your Vixies uncover new types of high-level spheres, other stuff that will make you more powerful, and getting bonus damage to all of your attacks. So we're gonna go over some of that to mine stuff in here that is an absolute gold mine, plus a few more things that I've also tested in the past week. So let's jump right in. So let's get started with some of the best practices that I'm using to make the most out of crossbreeding, do it in the shortest amount of time possible, and still create some of these crazy results right here, where you can see they pretty much have some of the best stats in the entire game, pretty much maximized on the damage and then some. So there are 5 of them in total. I'm going to just present them really quickly, and then we're gonna go over them in a case-by-case basis, as you will see the crossbreeding in actual practice. So the 4 tips are as follows. 1. Alphas in the wild can have significantly higher HP than the breeds you create. 2. The less overlap in stats when you transfer, the better are the chances to transfer down the stats that you actually want. 3 is that you'll want to pass down the legend trait to weaker pals for later on use. And 4, no stat pals can be an absolute game changer when you fully want to control an outcome of a crossbreed. So let's get started with the first one. Alphas in the wild have much more HP than breeds. This can be anywhere from 5 all the way to 300% when it comes to the difference in HP between the alpha boss out in the wild and the breeds you create back at home. Probably the most extreme example in this case is for Stallion. The alpha boss you fight in the wild has 14,000 HP plus at level 50 with no other upgrades. Meanwhile, if you were to crossbreed a few for Stallions and get a final breed, this might only be about 5,000, which is significantly lower, 3 times lower than that. But in most circumstances, it's about 10% or a little bit more of a difference. So in these situations, you have to put into balance, is it worth it to upgrade this creature because it might be able to tank a little bit more for me and survive? Or should I just focus on the final breed and get the best possible damage bonuses? In my experience is that it will take quite a bit of time until you get a perfect breed outcome. So focusing at first a bit on a high HP companion, especially when it comes to somebody like for Stallion, could be a very good option. Now the second tip is even more important, because what I noticed is that the less overlap I had in stats when I transferred between 2 partners, the outcome usually had better chances to transfer down the stats that I really wanted. So let me give you an example. If you were to just take a male of a certain breed with like 4 different passives and combine it with a female also with 4 different passives, your chances are to get the outcome that you want are minimal at best, because it just shuffles between all of them and the chances get significantly lower. On the other hand, if you exclusively focus on just a couple of very good stats on the parents, then the chances for the offspring to only have those increase exponentially, to the point that it only takes like 2, 3, a max of 5 tries to get them. Still a bit of RNG, but much better than before. So let me give you an example. In this case, I wanted a Yormuntide that had both the Ferocious and the Legend to pass it to a different beast. So in this case, I made absolutely sure that the parents only had these stats. So one of the parents had only Ferocious and the other had only Legend. So what this meant is that it only took 2 tries for me to get an offspring that exclusively had only these 2. The same happens if you have a parent that only it has the stats with a parent that has absolutely no stats at all. Which brings us to tip number 3. No stat pals can be an absolute game changer. So for example, in the next chain of crossbreeding with the same Yormuntide we just got with the Legend and the Ferocious, I just wanted to pass that down to a Suzaku Aqua. So what I did in this case, I combined this Yormuntide with a Suzaku that had absolutely no stats. I was about to actually throw this one away. So as you can see, the first offspring was not really great because it got a negative trait. The second one got it without the negative traits, but it was a male. I needed a female, so I did it a 3rd time, and on the 3rd time I got a female, which actually had the exact same stats. But as you can see, in all of these 3 scenarios, every single one of them got mainly the ferocious and the legend. Everything else was random, and it had a much bigger bias towards not getting anything at all because the parents also did not have anything at all. So what this meant is that I now had the possibility to just combine that Suzaku Aqua, which we got the ferocious and legend from 2 generations ago, combine it with a Blazimuth that I simply caught out in the wild with the flame and the muscle head. So in a few more breeds, it took no time to basically get a Blazimuth that absolutely had each and every single one of those. I think that this was actually the first try, and when I tried it the second time with the second egg, it wasn't that great, so you can still see the RNG in action. But this gave me an absolute insane Blazimuth with ferocious, legend, muscle head, and the flame emperor all into one. Let me show you another great example, in this case reaching a final shadow beak that gets massive bonuses to darkness damage, but I needed the Necromus with the legend and the Lord of the Underworld that gives me that. So first we needed the Astegon because this is a 3-part process. So I used a mana string with no stats so that we can transfer just those 2 stats to the final Astegon. However, in this case, yeah, the RNG gods favored me, and besides those 2 on the first try, I actually also got the muscle head for some reason, but in 2 more tries I would have gotten those anyways with the legend and the Lord of the Underground. And the third thing that I had to do was get a Kitsune, and in this case what I did is that again I combined one partner that had no stats, a Cognito, with one that had only the ferocious, which was the one I was lacking, and the result was simply a Kitsune that had only ferocious. Now in this case I needed about 5 tries to reach this, but significantly better than the 10 plus you would need otherwise. And finally, the only thing remaining was to combine that Astegon we created with the Kitsune that only had ferocious, with the final result being essentially an amazing shadow beak that has everything: legend, ferocious, muscle head, and the Lord of the Underworld, which is just crazy to look at. And there are other examples that I've used just as well. Like for example, I have an Anubis which is completely maxed out and reaches almost 2000 damage right there. I think that I can do a bit more to buff up its damage too. And this brings us to the 4th and final tip, and that is you should definitely pass down the legend perk from the best of the best in the game, from Frostallion and all the others, to lower tier quality pals. Reason being is because you can then use those lower tier quality pals but with the legend perk to crossbreed them into other amazing results at that level. So for example, Relaxasaurus, a few Loop Moons, maybe a Dire Hall, maybe even an Anubis can help in this case to have the legend trait passed down to them. And of course you can use any of the combinations as long as you use one of the legend pals in that combination to pass it down. So let me give you another example. At a low level, I wanted to get a Relaxaurus with eventually the legend and ferocious, and just have these 2 on it. So luckily I was able to breed one from an Anubis that I had that previously got it from either Frostallion or probably the other dragon, I kind of forgot, and then a ferocious one which again was bred from actually a previous Dire Hall. So once I got the parents, one with legend, one with ferocious, I combined those into one final Relaxaurus, which I then combined with a muscle head, in this case Grisbolt, and it gave me this crazy Orzhirk with the legend, muscle head, and ferocious, which then I only had to breed with an Orzhirk that had the Lord of the Lightning, since they often come up with this if you catch the ones in the wild. The final result was obviously one that had all 4, and the lightning damage on this can get really crazy. But now that this is out of the way, let's talk about some of the crazy secret bonuses that you get from using the partner skill upgrade. Essentially, the condenser, if you rank up your pals, they might get some secret upgrades you did not even know about, including, for example, Vixie having the possibility to give you Mega Pal spheres, not just regular spheres. So it seems that every single farming animal in the game will gain a bonus when they reach rank 2, 3, and then eventually 4, to the amount and even the type of resources that they will dig up at the ranch. So for example, in the case of the Vixie, which I also tested out at rank 3 and 4, she now has a chance to also find Mega Pal spheres. It seems that both rank 3 as well as 4 are about the same, so it's not worth it to waste that many Vixies to rank 4. Just bring her to 3, get a couple of Vixies, and now she has a chance to also give you these Mega Pal Spheres. And I can tell you that after testing in game, it definitely works. So you can maybe get like 100 Vixies, level up in the process, and then have her also dig up normal spheres and the Mega Spheres alongside the other items she gives you. Another absolutely massive one is that you can get mounted bonuses, damage swaps, and even party-wide buffs from different combinations. So let me show you a few, starting with the party buffs. It's not just Sui and B-Guard that can provide these. All of these creatures you see right here provide different ones like electric, fire, dark, even ice, pretty much all elements. So what you can do is have a bunch of these instead and buff up a different type of creature. Maybe Frostallion is your main, you can use a bunch of Foxicles to massively buff its frost or ice damage. So in this case, for example, you could level up and rank up to max 4 Foxicles and combine it with 1 Frostallion to buff up its damage by about 100% of everything that it does. But there's a third step from this point on, and that is the fact that Frostallion as well as Frostallion Knocked also come with their own hidden stat, which is the boost to attack while mounted, which is going to swap the element that you use. You might have noticed that using certain companions as mounts might change the type of elemental damage that you deal with your weapons, plus it lets you use their own mounted attacks. Well, in this case, that also gets boosted if you rank up that specific creature. So this includes Hellzephyr, Azurobe, Ragnarok, Beacon, but also Frostallion and Frostallion Knocked. So they also provide their own skills to use, but also, yeah, improve your player damage with the ice in the case of Frostallion or darkness in the case of the Knocked variant. So theoretically, what we could do in this case is buff up all of these creatures to rank 4, have them in a party, mount up Frostallion, and then use its attacks. And as you will see, the difference is absolutely insane. You're gonna now be able to completely destroy creatures much easier. In fact, there are certain setups that can be used exclusively on mount back, as they will provide you much higher damage because you are on mount back. And Frostallion is one of those creatures, but there are others with the mounted elemental damage boost too, like in the picture that we just seen. So there are many more that we're gonna explore in future videos. I cannot wait for the video tomorrow because I'm almost ready with it, and there are some insane synergies I want to show you that will absolutely wreck everything in the game. Just in case a big boss or raid appears, you might want to be ready for that. I'm gonna show it for you. Plus, it's really fun to look at. This is pretty much it with the video. As always, if you enjoyed it, a thumbs up and a sub would be amazing. If not, dislike and comment your frustration below, and I'll see you in the next video.